So, I think today will be maybe slightly shorter than normal because it's been a big week, and I know Rasmus, particular, is a bit tired, and my phone could go off anytime.
Yes,
because
that's more of a worry, I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've been launching a lot of new functionality in our two platforms, Skovkort and Forsler. Yeah. So it's been a big week. Okay, let's not begin yet, because I actually have like an intro story. And this story is about something that we normally or often discuss to begin with, which is, any guess?
Wooden bikes.
Nope.
Something political.
Yeah. And it's about a person who's just completed his first 100 days in office.
Oh, the Donaldo.
Yeah. So I actually thought, what has he actually done that has relevance for us in the first 100 days of his second term? And does any of you recall anything he's done?
A lot of interviews.
Yeah.
A lot of cameras on him talking to people being not nice. The whole tariff thing went off, but I don't think there's actually anything implemented. I don't know.
Yeah, there's the 10% baseline thing.
Okay.
And then China, I don't know.
And I just heard yesterday that the price of coffee is now really high.
Yeah, it's been that for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
But don't know if that's his fault, but
I don't think it's his fault.
Blame him for everything.
No.
Okay, I actually have 4 here. So,
He's pulled out of the Paris Agreement, right?
Yes, you're right, which is not on my list, but you're absolutely right. So, he has increased logging on 113 million hectares of U.S. public land while bypassing endangered species protections. That's one. We actually talked about that at some point in time. And then he is also pivoted away from forest carbon offset and climate regulation. And then he killed the old growth protection plan. He actually did that on day 1. So no need to protect old forest and stands anymore. Okay. And then he's put Tom Schultz to head the timber, the Forest Service. And he's an old timber executive. Of course, I don't know him, but at least he's laid off 2,000 of his employees. So, yeah. And then we also, another thing that we also talked about a couple of episodes back was this these 18 states that are pushing Trump to go even further, rejecting the EUDR. Yeah, you remember?
Yeah.
And to summarize it, and this, I don't know if it's a positive or negative, but at least if you're a forest owner and manager or timber exporters, this means more logging domestically, fewer climate rules, increased tension in international timber trade, especially with Europe, and a likely shift in global forest policy away from climate mitigation and towards raw production.
Yeah, baby.
And I'm pretty sure that, these 3 for some is probably positive news. But if you're into like a sustainable forestry and, I don't know, it's probably not that positive.
No.
It'd be nice to look how it actually paves out, what will actually happen. I know that he, removed some of the rules.
Yeah.
But what will actually happen? I have a hard time believing they will cut down the old trees, the old sequoia and redwood, or what they're called, and all these. Not saying that they won't, but it seems that there must be people out there saying no way.
I would like to go and visit before they cut them down. A little
Yeah,
bit.
you should. You should go to
Let's
Yosemite.
let's do a company trip.
Yeah.
I like you, Rasmus, because you're always so positive about people's intention. That's nice.
There are good people out there.
There sure is. There's also evil people out there,
There are. Not to be
but
forgotten.
hopefully not in the forestry sector.
Probably also there. But then there
I
are
don't know if we talked about illegal.
logging, yeah.
Yeah. Last
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Wonder, is it easier now? Yeah, less rules, it's easier to not make it illegal.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, that's positive.
It also depends a lot if what they are going to use all the, logs produced.
Energy.
I don't
I'm
think
also
so.
thinking.
Oh no, they have better energy.
Yeah,
They have the black energy.
much better. But if they,
But what are the intended use of it? Is it for more building material?
I think so.
So they're importing a lot from Canada, they did, right?
They produce a lot themselves, but I would assume, Canada also.
Yeah.
I think they import more than they produce. I think we've covered that
Yeah.
at some point
Yeah.
in time. Okay, that was just a bit of a introduction, and
100 days in?
Yeah.
On how many days?
how many days left?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So So then the first story, and I'm sorry, Rasmus. There's no take in this story, but
I will find some.
okay, yeah. That'll be interesting to see actually.
Mm.
So, but I have to take this one because it's relevant, it's fascinating, and it just happened this last week, and it's a story from Wood Central, and the original headline of the story goes like this: Carpenters worked in secret Vatican workshop to build Pope's coffin. And then I have rewritten the title a bit. The Green Pope laid to rest in cypress, a final act of simplicity and stewardship. That's my headline. Okay. What?
Why a new one?
It's because it's a very long story, and there's elements in the story that are relevant for us, and those are the ones that are highlighted in the way that I'm gonna read out the story now.
Okay.
And the title sort of fits into that storyline.
Fair enough.
Yep. So Pope Francis, a global voice of climate and forest protection, has been laid to rest, not in gold, marble, or metal, but in handcrafted coffin of untreated Mediterranean cypress. Yeah. As the world bid farewell to Pope Francis on April the 26th, attention turned not just to his legacy, but to the material simplicity and symbolic meaning of his final resting place. Built in secret by Vatican carpenters, his coffin was carved from, and I'm sorry, Benjamin, now it's Latin, Cypressus sempervirens
Yes.
cypress, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Can you pronounce it?
No.
Okay. A resilient and culturally significant tree native to the Mediterranean. So here are some key facts. So Francis rewrote the papal funeral rites, replacing the traditional triple casket, cypress, oak, and lead, with a single untreated cypress coffin lined in zinc. The wood was selected and crafted by, and this is a Italian, I think, name for that type of workers that do this.
That build coffins.
Yeah, so I'll try here. So Falegnameria Industriale.
Good effort.
An elite and secret group of Vatican carpenters. Cypress has been used in sacred and durable structures for thousands of years and is renowned for its strength, longevity, and symbolic value. Francis became the first pope in over a century to be buried outside the Vatican, choosing the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore instead. I'm not good at the
You
Italian.
need to go to Rome.
Yeah. The late Pope had a strong record of supporting sustainable forest management, including delivering a message to the UN Forum on Forest just last year. And I actually have the quote here. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Forests are a critical, important dimension of the natural world. They sustain fragile. Just a second. Fragile. Better. Ecosystem. Enhance the environment and contributed to the climate change mitigation. The health of humanity cannot be separated from that of the environment in which we live. Pope Francis. Last year. Okay.
How many money did you support with?
The article doesn't say
Okay.
anything about that. Pope Francis uses global platform to speak not only about climate justice but forest justice, linking deforestation to the well-being of people, culture, and the planet. His funeral choices reflect a consistently worldview, simplicity, natural materials, and care for creation. For forest manager, landlords, and policymakers, is a poignant reminder of the material matter and the message traveled through wood as well as the words. Right? So, a question for you, Rasmus. No, I don't have any for you. So, Benjamin, what does it mean when world leaders like Pope Francis do something like this in terms of, taking a coffin and goes in one direction, choosing a species like a cypress, and what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a good thing, I guess. Cypress is. I'm surprised you said it was strength, chosen for strength. That's something I, hear a lot about in Denmark.
If you think of cypress, what's the properties that you sort of think of?
The longevity, for sure, because there's these natural oils. In cypress that makes it, more durable. You often use it for outside facades. What do you call it in English?
Building material for is it called facade? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like it's more durable at least than a lot of other spruce.
Mm-hmm.
So the longevity is for sure correct.
Why would you want longevity in a casket? It makes absolutely no sense.
Good point, I guess.
It makes no sense. Unless it's not about, is it going to be buried or is it just standing there somewhere in the catacombs of something?
I also don't know how the longevity works when it's underground. It's probably
it's less at least.
But I mean, in general, it's good when people have you can talk to a lot of people, and forestry and commercial forestry and doesn't always, there's not. It's good when people talk about it and it being a good thing because not a lot of people in forestry are heard.
Mm-hmm.
It's So yeah, I like that part.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, governments and policymakers, they all have a place, and people listen when they speak. But I guess if you take something like this, where you sort of you have a person that goes across cultures and borders and everything, I would assume it's is also important. Why are you laughing, Rasmus?
Because it means absolutely nothing that he's buried in that. And what he says.
You don't? You don't think so?
No.
Why don't you think that?
Because no one cares. There are some people that
You don't think no
that
one
have
cares
that
about
form-
what the Pope says?
Yeah, there are some with that, strain of Christianity that believes in it. But in that strain, you go to heaven and, whatever you've done, all your sins are forgiven. So why should they?
There was actually 250,000 that traveled to pay their final respect to the Pope.
Yeah, there are a lot of crazy people out there.
Yeah.
Have they found a new one? I've heard that Sass Larsen has joined the race.
Who?
Sass Larsen.
Sass Larsen.
The Danish politician.
Oh,
It's a meme.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No.
I think you should have done the only proper thing when you have an abundance of wealth stored in your little country.
Mhm.
And that was to be buried in a gold casket full of diamonds just to show that we have all this wealth. This is just...
Yeah, but I don't think that's how...
No, that's not how they want to be perceived.
How religion work.
Not on the foresight, or how should I say it. But they have a lot of wealth.
Yeah, they do.
And a lot of... why? I have a question, actually. Why did the carpenter team need to be secret? It's so weird.
Okay, so when you talk about games and gaming and gameplay and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it needs a good story.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good story that it's a secret... it's almost like a SWAT team,
Secret chamber underneath the
Yeah.
cathedral.
But also that the carpenter team is...
It's the same with queens and the whole royal thing.
Yeah. That's also...
Of course, it needs to be secret and out of reach. And
I wonder that the NDA they had to sign to make the casket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Cypress.
interesting. Yeah, it's the interesting one.
But I actually
Okay,
don't
but
think
I-
they bury people.
But I also
that,
know you're not very keen on royal things and church and
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But in the... What is the line of Christianity called?
Catholics.
Yeah, Catholics. I don't think they bury, actually. I think they put them in... as far as I remember from the book, is it called... the one in... there's also Angels and Demons. Is it called that?
Yeah.
That's about the Vatican. But I think they bury them, not in dirt, but in their cellars or something like that. So I'm not sure that it will actually ever go into the ground.
Mm.
Yeah, it actually says here, I think they bury. Isn't that also what you see in movies?
Yeah, but this...
Now,
The
I'm
Catholics
sorry,
are a bit different,
This
but-
podcast
Yeah.
is turning into something weird.
No, this
really
is
weird.
about why should you need to do it in cypress, instead of... Is it a cheap wood?
I'm not. Yeah, there's probably more species than one cypress. I only know the Danish one, but in Denmark it's not really used for anything. It will sometimes for outside.
Yeah, okay.
But
It was just... if you chose the cheapest wood, I guess that's a good thing. And wood that couldn't be used for anything else, because if it is decomposing, then he's not doing anything for the environment.
that's true as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a substitution effect.
shout out to the Pope.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are gonna move on into a much more techie story. So it actually goes or has some roots back to the story that we talked about last week, the International Space Station. Although these two are not connected, but the ambition and the attention of this story is it's the same. So new satellite. Europe launched giant space brolly to weigh the world's forest. Do you know
Brolly?
what a brolly is?
No, I never heard that word.
Yeah, neither did I. So it's actually it's British for umbrella.
Okay.
So
Slang.
a brolly, it's definitely not a slang. So a brolly, it's an umbrella. Okay. A new satellite shaped like a giant umbrella has just launched to map Europe's forest in 3D from space. So satellite.
3D.
Satellite.
Mm.
On April the 29th, the European Space Agency launched the Biomass satellite, a large British-built spacecraft with a 12-meter wide radar antenna. Huh? That's a bit. You want to see the picture?
Where's the big one?
Yep. It sure is. So here's this is what it looks like animation-wise.
Mm.
And again, it's an ugly satellite.
Thank
here-
God no one can see it.
Here you can see the actual brolly.
Yeah, and that's the antenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the radar disc.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I can already see now that you're much more engaged in this story, Rasmus.
Yeah. This is
This is
real
more your
work.
home turf.
That has not been left to God.
Maybe there's some religion in this story as well.
Nah.
Okay.
Okay, so a 12-meter wide radar antenna designed to measure the amount of carbon stored in forests, especially in the hard-to-reach tropical regions. Right?
Yeah.
So, facts for you, babies. The satellite, the satellite is nicknamed the Space Brolly because of its huge umbrella-shaped antenna. And you have seen the pictures. It weighs. Do you actually know what it weighs? Of course you don't.
No,
But try to guess.
Up there,
You know it's huge.
weightless.
Yeah. Do you remember what the Starlink satellite?
I can't remember if it was
I
that.
think it was 250 kilos,
kilos,
right?
right.
And then version 2 was 800, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably the double then.
Yeah, so 1600.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Every time we talk about weight, you just jump on the back of Rasmus.
A satellite, I have no idea. Literally
But
no idea.
also on, not on bikes.
Yeah, I had an idea, but it was wrong.
You're right. Okay, so it weighs 1.25 tons.
Okay.
And will orbit Earth for 5 years, scanning forests in Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. The mission will map 1.5 trillion trees, producing detailed 3D maps that are updated every 9 months. Finally, an article that says something about, when the data is updated. So every 9 months.
I'll give you like 6 sweeps.
But only for 5 years? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I think it works with the EU projects.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's one of the things. But it's also, the environment is not nice up there. Things, because you go from extreme heat to extreme cold.
yeah.
And electronics die.
I actually think when we talked about the ligno set, I think it was plus 80 degrees, minus 80 degrees when it goes.
It's like the Danish weather.
Not
Not quite.
quite.
But with less of a span, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it uses a long wavelength radar that works like a CT scan, slicing through tree canopies to measure what's underneath, not just the tree tops like satellites apparently do today. The technology comes from Airbus UK, built in Stevenage with help from 250 engineers and technicians. That's quite a workforce. And it also include a US-based team from L3 Harris. I don't know what that is, but actually I do. They are the ones that has expertise in terms of the large antenna. Okay, Dr. Ralph Corday, head of geoscience from Airbus, says most satellites only see the twigs and leaves. This one slices through the trees like a CT scan. And of course, it's a reference to when you go to the hospital
Yeah.
and get a statement on the inside.
A CT scanner for the globe.
Yeah, the skin of the globe.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So of course, why is this interesting in terms of forestry? So, wow, there's a notification. Measuring how much carbon forests store is still one of the hardest and most important challenges in forestry and climate science. Until now, we've relied on local ground measurements and small samples. With this satellite, we can finally get a global, consistent view of carbon storage and carbon loss due to deforestation. And I know, do you remember last time we talked about illegal timber or illegal logging and how to keep track of that and EODR and everything? We talked about satellites and deforestation and how to monitor this. Ta-da!
It's
Right.
only every 9 months, so
It's not like
yeah.
the bad guys. They
I can
jump into the lorry or pick up and then
The thing is, I can go out there and take it, and
Yeah.
before it's
I wonder how they can, different species have, different density or, different amount of CO2. So it must be like a
I guess so.
mean
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But I guess if you are to just it's probably also okay, right?
I guess.
It's what we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, so this could be a game changer for carbon markets, forest planning, and policy decisions around the world. So let's start with you, Rasmus.
Yeah, and it's just that every time they all say that,
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any coordination of all the satellites going into space. And it's like, we will measure this, now we're in this space,
Yeah.
there's probably another space where we will measure this. If they all measure the same thing, or maybe we could,
Yeah, I mean,
I know how projects work.
yeah, and of course, I have never worked at an organization the size of EU, and neither the size of Google. But I remember when we visited Google 10 years ago, they also have this, 80-20% rule,
Yeah.
where 20% of the time you can do stuff on your own.
Mm.
And we talked to some Danes that worked at Google, and what often happens is, a lot of people in this 20% time work on the same things because they have no idea what, the rest of the extremely large organization do.
Yeah.
And then at some point in time, if they succeed, with this thing they're working on, they get to a meeting and they are allowed to present whatever they're working on. And of course, then it's presented to a limited set of people, and they of course know more or less what's going on. And then they might team up or create new products out of a few teams 20% thing.
Yeah.
I actually think Gmail is created this way back in the
Yeah,
day.
it probably was. I can. There's also other stories, success stories from
Yeah.
this. I also think that it was like one guy who made AdWords.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if that was one of these 80-20, but it
No,
was something
I
he did on his own.
Yeah, I think that was. I think it's listed in a book.
Yeah,
both of us
exactly.
has read, and
Yeah.
someone wrote an issue on
It was
that
Larry
fridge,
Page there. Yeah,
and then guy just.
saw it and solved it.
But I think my point to the story is
Yeah.
that I think when you get to such a large organization, and you also know this from semi-large organizations, whenever you do something formal or involve a lot of people,
Yeah.
it kills everything.
Yeah.
So I think you should probably just, of course, it's a large project, but based on EU, it's probably a really small project,
Yeah.
right?
There are hundreds of these projects. Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point in time, you just need to do stuff, explore stuff.
Yeah, and maybe it's also not a big problem that there's a lot of satellites maybe measuring the same, but also with different technologies. That's also interesting in itself.
Yeah. But just the time span of 5 years,
Yeah.
new technologies.
But maybe it's more a question of how do we make that, whatever all of these data they collect, how could we make that available to people? You know, in a way that it makes sense. Because again, if we build a system based on data, that's only 5 years guaranteed. That's also a bit, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And is the the mean sort of measurement enough? If we were to give our customers, it needs to be quite exact.
Yeah, that's a good question. Does it?
I mean, if you look at it globally, you have to, you can't make it. But if you on a national level.
Yeah, and that's also, of course, what this project is about. It's not on giving someone, but it's still interesting from.
It's about mass.
Yeah, but it can still be interesting from if you have like it's layers of information. So if I have this layer, okay, then at least I know something. Then if I go out there and do something, then I know more. But it's still, I can use this for some, because if I also manage a big area, it's also, I can't go out everywhere. But if I have this site that looks like this, and I know that reflects up on this great big thing of information up here, that will resolve in this. And if I have something over here that looks like this, or in this large layer, then I can say something. Maybe that looks a lot like this.
There's a lot of thises.
There's a lot of thises, but it's also on different layers, and that's hard to hear. But yeah, it's the global information can give you some indicators of local information.
Yeah,
if I should say like that, and that's interesting to know. That's one of the things I think is really interesting to understand about biodiversity, because it's so hard to measure.
Yeah.
But can we do something that can give us indicators that we can say, okay, if this looks like this, that's an indicator of biodiversity being at this level.
Yeah.
So that's, of course,
just to identify structures in place.
Yeah.
I think it would probably say a lot.
Yeah, and you can, of course, ask the question, then why don't we just use the images from, satellite images from Google or something like that to make these indicators? And you probably could, but this gives a layer, again, of information, because this also looks down through the canopy and can say something more.
Yeah.
And if you combine that with the one we've talked about before that actually measures the soil, the moisture of the soil, the satellite they were developing for that, combine that with that, and so on, then you begin to have a lot of information that you can begin to play around with. But that information needs to be available in a understandable manner.
Yeah. So, of course, we have, models in place in terms of projecting growth and everything in our software. And I guess, with the parameters, fixed for certain species and this sort of detailed information that we have, a program like this, updated every 9 months, you'll be able to detail your models, right?
Yeah, then you'll be able to actually say if your models are more or less correct, given whatever that puts out. But yeah, if that could put something out, like a real clear thing is the height. So you have some height that you say that this is the height now, and then in 9 months the height should be around this. Let's say your model shoots over with 0.5 meter, and then you get the measurements, and then then I have some parameters in my models that needs to be tuned better.
Yeah.
So it gives you a feedback on your models, and which
or
is
side
great.
index that needs to.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and again, if you can combine it with understanding of the ground, the moisture of the ground, or other things about that, then you can begin to make your models better.
Yeah. I was just seeing if this says anything about resolution. It doesn't. It is actually a quite nice article. It's pretty rich with information. And
another thing we also discussed is this: if there is an acceleration in how the climate changes, and so on, then a challenge that is that it's really hard to get new data on whatever you have for this. You would like these cycles to be rapid when you tune your models, or if you adapt them. So if you have to wait like 5 years, No one waits 5 years for anything, so that it just doesn't work. We need to have it more rapidly.
Yeah, but I think 9 months isn't that?
I think that's. You could also argue that 5 years is okay when dealing with trees because they have a long lifespan. But of course, if you can get that down to 1 year, that would make it perfect. Then you can argue if you even need to.
Yeah,
that's one growth season.
Yeah, and then you can argue if you should even model it.
Yeah,
just measure it.
But then coming back to deforestation, then you want it as regular as possible.
Yeah, then you want it even. More often.
But I guess deforestation could also be, it could also be caught with just, regular images.
Yeah, that's at least some of the things we have seen, and you can see also if you look at these NIR filter where you have, you can clearly see when vegetation goes away.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's what we need to remember is a lot of these, technologies, of course they're amazing, as a standalone technology, but when you combine them, that's where it really gets interesting.
Yeah, and we are in the era of machine learning, AI, and the key to having that better is data, and the more sources and so on, the more data you have, then you can train them better.
Yeah. Okay, so so it says something about longer wavelength, better penetration. Now you're not a wavelength expert,
not a radar expert, no.
But I guess that's the feature of this particular radar that makes it work better.
Yeah, the wavelength is longer.
Yeah. Good. Benjamin, how could this kind of tools help us protect tropical forest more efficiently or better? I think we probably already covered that.
Yeah, like Rasmus said, look for tendencies. And I also think, you can, if you do it over time, you can maybe see which species thrive in different places and which deteriorate. And that's the thing. If you have continuous data like that, you can see the tendencies, and you'd have to know what species is because it probably can't detect species. But every data thing you have continuously, I think, is quite valuable.
Yeah.
But we hear a lot about these satellites, and it, like Rasmus also said, it needs to be available.
Yeah. So this. I actually have another good question for you, Benjamin. But in terms of the comment about we hear a lot about these satellites. I remember back in the Neilfish days. I think you introduced me to this sort of score level in terms of how mature a technology is. I can't remember what it's called.
TRL.
Yeah.
Technology readiness level.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Could you maybe give your estimate on where are we in terms of okay there's different things in place. There are satellites as a general thing, and then there are technologies in order to provide information on forest and climate. Do you have like what's your best guess on this?
Yeah, so maybe so what are technology readiness level? It's something that's used in science and especially in projects, so scientific projects, to describe on which level do we go in here and do something. So technology ready TRL1 is like that's like base science. That's like when you discover, the physicists discover something new.
Yeah.
And then you have the sound just went really down in my ears.
Is it too much?
No, it's just because I've got used to the other.
But it's also very very loud. I can see, isn't it?
Yeah, that maybe it is.
Just look at my.
Oh.
Sorry, I missed.
I
I messed everything up. I
okay.
adjusted the headphones.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's that like base science. And then you move up the ladder, and then you reach something like the TIL 4 or 5. That's when you'd say, okay, now we have these technologies.
Mhm.
They are not just science anymore. They have actually been evolved into something that could go into a product. We don't have it in there yet. So then you take a scientific project, particularly your base science, that's where you have the physicists, the mathematicians, and so on.
Yeah.
Then you move up on these levels where you have the engineering scientists. They can take it from that level and into something like TIL 7.
Where do external companies get involved?
Then it's like an overlapping thing. So they get involved when you reach this TIL. They are typally in the projects where you go from TIL 4.5 to TIL 7.8.
Okay.
In that span.
Yeah.
Then they become, so it's not really a commercial product yet.
Yeah.
But you can see the indicators of this can going into a commercial product.
Okay.
And then the universities let go of it at like TIL 7, 8-ish. That's also depending on the project. And then it's the company's job to take them to TIL 9, and TIL 9 is like a commercial project.
Okay.
That's where you can go out and buy it.
Yeah.
That does not mean that everyone can go out and buy it. It could be, so satellites are somewhat a TIL. They are TIL 9, I guess.
Yeah, it's a
because you know Starlink,
Yeah,
and we also use. There's a lot of satellites going into space now, and you can go down in Denmark and order a satellite.
Yeah.
So it's not you can actually get them built
everywhere.
And then of course all the technologies going on the satellites.
Yeah.
They can also start from TL, and you know radar has been a technology for many years, so that's also like a TL up there.
Yeah.
But then you can of course tweak it and so on and have it. You kind of go down the ladder again to go up again.
Mm. And then again, when you combine two technologies.
Yeah, exactly. Then you kind of have a new project. But a project like that would probably start like a TL 4.5 again. So you don't need the base science test to have done anything before you can take it up some level.
Yeah.
You just start, and that's a lot of. So university projects, they have like many different formats. A lot of them going from we have in Denmark something called the Innovation Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Which typically fund in the TIL 4 to TIL 7 level.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the engineering scientist level.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money, but because then you can activate the companies, because in the end, we all run on money. So you also need to generate some projects that actually generate some value for companies that can then take that into the market. So a lot of technologies are at that level, but of course it's expensive to send things into space.
Yeah.
But what we are, as far as I can see, are lacking a bit. That is, okay, now we have all these things in space, doing all these things, but how do they provide value for the rest of society?
Yeah.
They will, and you should also send things into space and then think about it afterwards. How can we then begin to make value of it?
Yeah.
That's also how you start stuff.
Yeah. I actually saw an interesting video last week, I think, about is Jens Isbak, right? He talked about the evolution of cameras. You know, from when he started doing his thing. I don't know what. He's a filmmaker, right? Or he's a lot of things, but probably his main thing is a filmmaker. He talked about the struggle and with those early days cameras up to the place where we are today, where it's not a struggle anymore, and everything that you have, you know, is cameras. Of course, there are still development going on, and there's a lot of development going on, but the increment every time something new launches is just
now it is like a curve. It's like an exponential curve until some new technology takes over. Then you get a new step.
And then he talked about 360 cameras. And there's a lot of issues with those. And now we are getting to a level where it's actually something that can be used, and is for him is a tool, you know, in his daily toolbox, and something that he uses in terms of filmmaking. And I guess this is, you know, coming back to what we discussed about this. It's still, in terms of how we perceive it, you know, okay, it's not like, of course you can get the data, but it's not like, you know, you go to a local shop and just
No.
just
Yeah,
get it.
yeah, exactly.
It's still complex.
Yeah, really. And
So in this sort of sense, I mean, we're just getting started, more or less. It seems like.
yeah, and typically when we talk about technology, we clinch it onto something physical because that's a little bit easier. So like a car or a smartphone and so.
Yeah.
But just from the software point of view, that's exactly the same. There is no difference.
Yeah.
You also need to maintain it. Everything is the same.
Yeah.
We can increment faster typically, but there's a reason that we can do that now. Now we are building a SaaS platform that lives in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine doing it before that, right?
Yeah.
Then you need to have your own
Yeah.
data center or at least something elsewhere and so on. And you needed to, if you had them yourself, you need to maintain all the hardware and all that. Not saying that couldn't be a solution. Again, you also have this pulsing from to the cloud, away from the cloud, to the cloud. Because, but technology is just making stuff available.
Yeah. Okay, the question for you, Benjamin, what kind of influence do you think technologies like this will have on projects out there? They come in various forms, like storing CO2, climate credits, all that kind of stuff, and also in terms of certification.
Well, I mean, there's not really, at least in Denmark, there's not really any. You can't really, get your CO2 credits from existing forest.
Oh.
Because there's not really a standardized way of sort of measuring that and keep measuring it. Maybe it could help there. I don't know if that could be if that's sort of the standard measurement you look at. In terms of certification, it's a good question. You need to sort of monitor the forest health every year. You need to make an assessment and make sure it's not, causing the forest to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And if it does, you need to implement some actions against it. But yeah.
But I think that sort of pops into my mind is of course you want to certify a forest, and then okay, but then there's the audits. I would assume if we had all technology available, keeping track of everything, auditing isn't really a thing anymore. At least now I'm talking about the forest side of it.
Well, they would need to do it remotely then. Someone has to look at it,
Yeah, or the technology will inform if there are any discrepancies that needs to be looked at.
If it can be that exact, I guess so. But some things are very small. You need to do in certifications.
Yeah, of course, and you're right.
So I don't know.
But in terms of keeping track of its positive growth you see in the forest, I mean, you don't really know. You don't need to talk about that anymore because that's something that could easily be picked up by a system like this.
The question: can you even do it without?
Yeah.
Then you need to go through the whole. You can't. You need something like that to actually measure it.
If you don't have the technology, it's sort of
best guess.
It's the two of us, talking about it, showcasing something that will convey you to believe that that's the case. It's positive, right? But if it's actual measurement, taking care of everything, then not much to talk about. So I guess that's a simple thing, at least.
Yeah, but that's also a very small thing of certification.
Yeah. Could you think of anything else?
In terms of certification, I mean, I don't really. It's hard for me to. I haven't really thought about it like data-wise certification because there's a lot of.
How do you think about it then?
Certification.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's, there's a lot of, you need to talk to every forest owner because every forest owner has different objectives, and so every certification can be different. You just have to, and every forest manager does it in a different way.
Yeah.
You just have to, make your best interpretation of the standard.
Yeah.
And some
sorry.
well, you need some things are very small things you need to do in your management. Some are bigger. It's not really that much you need to sort of closely monitor, like data-wise, every year. I can't really think of. I mean, in terms of deforestation, I can definitely see it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a.
No, but I just think so. Basically, so I guess certification is just a rule book, right, on how to conduct forestry.
It's yes, I guess you can call it that. It's not really rules, you can interpret them, but you need to stay in between the
Yeah. So just coming from this, I would assume there must be a vast majority of the rules that could potentially just be solved by technology reporting on stuff. What's your thought, Rasmus?
Yeah, I think I would think about it like this. Let's go through the rule book and then list the things that could easily be done.
Yeah.
So one of them is to actually, or should be done. One of them is this. How would you know if it's positive growth if you don't measure it? Take the man's word for it, or I know you can report where you are felling stuff.
Yeah.
But that doesn't see, So yeah, and are there other things like this? And then there are things that you should not try to do. And I don't know the rule book, but there are things that probably shouldn't.
But also in terms of the activities being carried out. If you have like a system that deals with this,
you can catch. You're not allowed to make too big of clear cuts, for example. And you need to leave, retention trees. But I know, maybe it can catch the retention trees.
It sure can. Also, in terms of species, you should also be able to track if that's the thing, is if it's native or non-native.
Yeah, probably can't detect that.
But broadleaf or conifer,
yeah, it can detect that, but some conifers are native.
Yeah, but the mix of it. So,
But what you use it in farming all the time, right? You use this field you can't plant anything like this, but then you can measure. Okay, the things that are coming out of that field, they have a much higher this NER or something like that.
Yeah,
and they shouldn't be growing right now, so we know that something's off.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a lot of stuff there, so maybe you can reuse some of that.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what.
One of the harder things in the certification, I think, is documenting the progress on the areas you put for biodiversity and nature conservation.
Yeah.
I think that in general is hard to document progress.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't know if it can help there. Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it's on such a small scale and so hard to measure.
What is progress, right? Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, you need some sort of baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need to then measure it. And again, back to measuring biodiversity, it's hard.
Yeah. Okay, so we didn't do a hot take on the Pope's coffin.
I think Rasmus did cover that one.
Yeah.
I had mine.
Yeah, you actually had a few. But let's do a hot take on this one. Who wants to go first?
I mean, we hear a lot about the satellites and all the data, and I need to see the use cases. And
think it's fake news?
No, I don't think it's fake news, but I need to see it used in practice, and I need to see it, give value. to the daily life of forestry.
Rasmus?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. So we hear a lot, we see a lot, but how does that dribble down to the actual forest manager or forest owner? So, but I understand this on the global picture, taking a look at the rainforests and see that they are not in a bad health. That makes sense. But how do we actually get from there down to the downstream to something? And maybe back to the talk with Stefano, right? It's amazing technology, but it still needs to work. Still need to make some value of it. So
yeah. For me, I'm a huge fan of innovations like this, and I truly believe at some point in time this will have a major impact on how we do stuff. It's just a matter of the maturity. Yeah. And when it will be available. But
but I also think you're completely correct. Just think about all the other technologies that we don't even think about anymore. Think about the internet. Well, when the internet came, there's a lot of people who said that's never going to be anything. No one will use it. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Now you can't even fucking go to the store without you're using the internet somehow. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Let's wrap it up. And this was actually episode 28. So nothing much to say. Then wish you all a great day and talk to you in the next one.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.